Live and let live. Bow, bow. Live and let live. Yeah. Welcome back to Life Lessons in Film. And today we're going to be making sense of life through Secretary with Maggie Gyllenhaal.
And James Spader.
What would you say, do you think one of the main themes was? Well, there's clearly coping mechanisms, I'd say, for addiction, or coping mechanisms for dealing with the sads.
Yeah.
So Maggie's character comes from a broken family.
Dad's an alcoholic.
And her mom desperately is trying to get, her daughter Maggie to get a job. So when she does end up applying for a secretary role, she's driving her to and from work every day.
So wait, Maggie, Lee? Not
Lee. Oh yeah, Lee. Lee is
Maggie Gyllenhaal plays Lee,
yeah.
And the movie starts with her leaving one of those homes, like for recovery for self-inflicted harm. So
yeah.
she cuts herself.
Yeah.
And so she went there, and then so we see her leaving the home, or I don't know what they call those places, recovery.
Yeah, recovery spot.
And she goes back home, and it sucks. Dad's still living there with alcoholism, and still kind of abusive to the mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so she finds a job to try and get out of
that environment.
To get out of that environment, at least during the day, because she starts to go back to cutting.
You go back to the old environment, the old
habits come back.
Yeah.
So she finds a job as a secretary, and that's about
pretty much.
Yeah.
So starts to develop a relationship with her boss, the lawyer.
Yeah.
And he finds out that she self-harms.
Yeah.
So that starts to become a kink. But yeah.
Well, it doesn't become a kink.
Right.
At all. The self-harming.
No, that's right. To avoid her self-harming.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that was to avoid the self-harming. It kind of... I don't know.
It replaces the self-need for self-harming.
It seems to replace that, yeah.
Yeah.
BDSM,
yeah.
Kind of relationship.
Yeah.
He's the dominant one, and she's submissive. She's super shy.
Yeah. She goes the subway, yeah. And
goes to the subway to do what?
No, she goes the subway. The submissive way.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. That's what they call it on the street. I figured there was going to be more to it because Maggie was involved. But, I wasn't sure if it was just going to be kind of like a 50 Shades of Grey, just kind of like a fantasy kind of thing, where there's a lot of kinky stuff. But the lawyer also is clearly dealing with a lot of shit. And this seems to be a pattern that he runs into, where this happens over and over again, where he hires someone, they form this kind of kinky, dominant, submissive relationship with the secretary, and eventually he gets rid of them. I don't know if he gets this shame that comes up where he just finally says, like, I can't do this, and then with Maggie he eventually says, like, I can't keep doing this, like, but she won't. But this time she refuses to let that happen. Yeah.
So she ends up cutting at work, and he catches her, and then he tells her, you're not going to do that anymore, and he talks about it like it gives you this feeling of relief, and like when you see the scars healing, it makes you feel like things are okay or something like that. But the point of that was to show at least to portray that he has his own coping mechanism or addiction, which has something to do with the secretaries that he keeps hiring and firing. But there is this level of understanding, and empathy on his end for her. That she doesn't seem to have gotten from anyone else, in terms of, like, that her family, for example. And so that endears her even more to him, and solidifies their relationship more, because they have this commonality. And I believe that was the thing that brings them closer. And I think that that's the thing that forms the relationship. And one could say, well, like, can you really have a relationship develop from a place of harm, right? Because at the end of the day, addiction is that, like, whatever it looks like, coping mechanism is that you're harming yourself to distract yourself from the other thing that's causing you pain. And it's not good long term. The movie at least portrays that it is possible. I guess it's not necessarily that you are brought together by these negative things, like you're Like, it's not necessarily that they're brought together by the pain, like the cutting and whatever fetishes he has. It's more the recognition that they're both going through struggles that is bringing them together, which no one else understands. So basically, it's more the fact that they understand each other more than anyone else could. Mm-hmm. Because it is easier, I think, to get into a relationship with people who understand where you're coming from. It's nice to not have to explain yourself, and it's nice for someone to just understand you. It is, of course, better to be with someone who's trying to get healthy instead of someone who wants to settle into their addiction or coping mechanism, because at the end of the day, coping mechanism, as much as you're trying to forget whatever it hurts you, it's still a negative, it's still a detrimental thing to your health and your overall well-being.
And yeah, I like the part at the end where, you know, it kind of gives you the sense that, you know, they're together, they're doing all the normal coupley things, even though behind the scenes they get real kinky. And then, you know, they go off and do their normal everyday things. And yeah, it shows that, you know, also, first of all, if both people are consenting and it works for them, all the power to you. And then, you know, everyone just goes about their daily lives, and, you know, everyone has their stuff in the sheets, under the sheets.
Yeah.
Below the public awareness, you know.
Yeah.
Which is a fine. The government has no place in the bedrooms of the nation.
I'm tired, by the way. I've had a rough day. And I'm exhausted. So, like, if I'm looking low, it's because I am low, out of my mind. Life is driving me. Life is putting me through the ringer. But when I was watching this movie, I was just thinking about, I was concerned about her replacing one addiction for another, because this relationship that they have, he spanks her to the point of her getting really bad bruises. And she gets addicted to that and ends up, whenever he stops, he tries to entice him as much as possible so that to activate his dominant role. Because sometimes he just decides, I don't want to play the game. Yep. But she wants the game, right? And so that's where I'm like, I was concerned a little bit that, are you replacing one addiction for another? Because at the end of the day, I think when you are doing something like cutting, it's something that that distracts you from the thing that's even more painful, but you can control this thing. Even though it's harmful, it allows you have a little bit more control over it, but at the same time, it is, of course, very unhealthy, and it could actually lead to something big, like her dying. Yeah. Which is how she ended up in the institution in the first place, because she had cut herself too deep, and there was a lot of blood, and she almost died.
Like any addiction, you keep pushing it to keep that same level of high. And in her case, she ends up cutting far too severe. And you also end up, unless you deal with it, the thing that causes the addiction, the loneliness, the sadness, the loss, the stuff that you're missing. Then you can replace it for any other addiction very easily. So she replaces it with spanking, and it just wasn't hitting the way that he does it. So she's trying to do it to herself in a room, and it's not giving it the right. It's missing something. She's,
at the end of the day, still living at home, still very much dependent on the parents. And when she starts working there, and they start doing this stuff, this BDSM stuff, she grows up really quickly and, starts being telling the mom, her mom would literally wait outside her job for the whole day. She'll drop her off, but she'll be in the parking lot the whole day waiting for her to pick her up. And the lawyer was like, you're going to tell your mom to stop picking you up. You're a woman. And so she did. And then she started walking home, So, and then she started asserting herself, being more assertive and standing up for herself and, saying no. And,
I also like the thing where she decides to do, because she wants, she convinced, I'm not leaving. He's like, all right, well then keep your hands on the desk till I come back. Till I say you can move them. But then he's really testing her commitment. So he's gone for 3 days. And she's there, and she's falling asleep at the desk, basically, still keep her hands there. And then there are journalists interviewing her. What does it mean? And no one really understands what she's doing. There are people going, oh, I'm so proud of you. This is inspirational. Other people are giving sermons to her, thinking it's a religious thing she's doing or some kind of protest. No, it's really just, I got this kink, with this guy, and I want to show that I'm serious, that I want to keep this BDSM going with this guy, because...
well, I mean, that's not special. The thing that she says. She basically says she's in love.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's why she does that. It has nothing to do with the BDSM.
It's a love commitment.
Yeah.
That's right.
So she does that for that. It's just a matter of the BDSM is the thing that they like.
Yeah.
You know,
works.
and that's that. Like at the end of the day, you know, someone could look at that as well and be like, well, you know, how is that even love? Like, it doesn't seem to be like soft and tender. But at the end of the day, you know, love can be whatever you want it to be. Some people like soft and tender. Some people don't like soft and tender.
Whatever gets you through.
Yeah.
What you gotta do.
It's like love languages, right? They just happen to have that kind of, you know, like they happen to prefer to show each other love in that way. Yeah. And it works for them. She's very happy in the end. They get married. And she talks about how she opens herself up to this guy, shows him all of her scars from cutting, and tells her, like, the first one, the second one, what happened, when it happened, why it happened, and he's just looking at her basically naked body, you know, just enjoying these stories, in the sense of how they open her up more to him, and how much more they make him love her. Yeah. You know, as a person holistically.
More comfortable finally to share these things about her that she was always so private and hiding about her body. Yeah. Helps her feel more loved and she's accepted free. And free finally.
Yeah. Because before, with the guy that she was about to marry, she was like, okay, fine, we can, you know, have sex, but, you know, I get to keep my clothes on and you switch the lights off. Yeah. So she couldn't before share these things, like share herself in the way that she does with this guy who absolutely loves everything about her, including the scars, all of that. Of course, I don't think anybody would have produced a movie like that right now. I feel like it would have been a risk.
I don't know. I mean, Maggie, I think, is very much for women's liberation. I think that's why she probably took that movie on, because it's playing a character that is allowing herself to explore these parts of her sexuality, you know? Yeah. So that's kind of how you look at it. It could be seen as a very, very feminist movie, very uplifting.
You could look at it like that, right?
It's a lot of it with psychology, you know? It's kind of goes back to their childhood. Same thing where a lot of men like to be dominated. Doesn't mean they're any less men. Yeah. Maybe something just happened that, you know, with their childhood in particular, that's something that's, you know, just under the subconscious there that is a turn on for them. So.
Yeah, and in this movie, she enjoyed being submissive. She enjoyed being dominated. And to the point where when it wasn't happening, she then becomes the domineer and, like, forces him to go back to dominating her. You know what I mean? So so she has, you know, like, the ability and agency to stand up for herself and get what she wants when she wants it. But what she wants is to be
dominate me right now.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that happens too. So it's interesting to look at it. Like, I don't know. I hope I presented my points properly, because I'm just
you're very tired. Time for sleep.
Yeah. But, like, I definitely like the movie, and I found myself enjoying the relationship between these two people as much as I was concerned, you know, but I started off on shaky ground, but ultimately, after reflecting on, love doesn't have to be soft, and everybody has different ideas of how to love each other and how they want to be showed love, you know? I cannot, like, ascribe any kind of way that is better than the other. You know what I mean?
Live and let live. Live and let live. Yeah. Well, that's some stuff we thought about Secretary. What do you guys think? Let us know down below in the comments.
Yes, share your thoughts. Comment down below and share your thoughts on our thoughts if you would like to.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
Till next time. Yeah, thank you. That's a wrap.